Well, welcome everybody today to Grow Your Skills with Management Consulted. And we're thrilled to have Naaman Mian with us. Naaman is the Chief Operating Officer for Management Consulted. He's been in that role for 8 years. And prior to that, he was also the founder of Next Gen Growth, his own consulting firm where he worked with private clients to drive growth. But he is the expert on management consulting. He knows the ins and outs, and you are in for a treat. So we'll just turn it over to Naaman.
Lauren, you are too kind. Can you come with me to all of my sessions and introduce me, please? Because that was very nice and generous of you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. I know it's 5:30 on a Monday evening. There are other things that you could be doing. Really appreciate your time. My goal here today is to walk you through the Management Consulted curriculum that you have access to through the university. They've been incredibly generous with you. They have procured access for you to our resources and our curriculum to prepare you for case interviews, both in consulting and outside of consulting. And so my goal today is over the next few minutes to walk you through the resources that you already have access to. And if you were to come to Management Consulted as an individual private client and want access to these resources, you would pay between $700 to $800 each to have access to these materials. Again, this access is complimentary for you through the university. And so I want to make sure that by the end of today, you have got a really good handle on how to utilize these so that you're taking full advantage of what you have access to. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to set the scene. I'm going to lay the foundation for what you have access to, and then we'll do a deep dive into a few of the specific resources. If you have questions as we're moving throughout the next 30 to 45 minutes, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. Like raise your Zoom hand, pop something in the chat. I'm happy to speak to your specific questions. And I'll also plan to take some questions at the end of our time together as well. So what you have access to is an online asynchronous curriculum that guides you through the recruiting process from beginning to end for roles that require you to navigate a case interview. And some of the roles and the industries and the jobs that require you to navigate a case interview include management consulting. They include product management in tech. They include internal strategy. So some of you may not be aware of this, but almost every Fortune 500 company has its own internal strategy function, which acts as an internal consulting firm, right? You're a consultant just for Coca-Cola, right? You work as an employee for Coca-Cola and you're working on initiatives and on projects that are championed by the C-suite. But instead of a company like Coca-Cola bringing in an outside consulting firm, your team is that consulting firm and you get to work on the business instead of in the business as an internal consultant. And so that's an option for many of you who are pursuing post-graduation roles. Those roles require you to navigate a case interview. You'll see case interviews in the realm of finance for roles at Capital One and JP Morgan. I already mentioned tech, firms like Meta and Amazon and Alphabet. And others like them in the big tech space will also require you to navigate a case interview. So honestly, for any post-graduation role, case interviews are now just an essential skill to know. And so this curriculum will walk you through how to ace the case. It'll do more than that, though, as well. We actually start by walking you through how to network effectively for these strategy and analytics roles. So in a lot of these companies, right, the recruiting and the screening process is extremely rigorous. And I'm investing a lot of time and effort and money into my screening process. And I'm very unlikely to give somebody an interview who somebody at my firm hasn't talked to before. Again, I want to de-risk the process as much as possible for myself. And if you're even on paper with another candidate and I've talked to you and I haven't talked to the other candidate, chances are I'm going to go with you because you've already passed the initial sniff test for me. And I've at least got a sense that you are polished enough, that you've got the communication ability that you need to make it through the gauntlet that is my recruiting process. So networking is a critical piece to success inside of these applications and these screening processes. And so one of the things that this curriculum focuses on is networking. I'll talk to you about that. The curriculum focuses on resumes and cover letters as well. You've got amazing resources available to you through the university. I wholeheartedly endorse the guidance and the template that the university is sharing with you. So you've got additional examples here that I'll show you that will be beneficial to you as you craft your resume and your cover letter, but I know that you all have amazing resources already around that. The behavioral interview is also something of incredible importance inside of these interview processes. So a lot of you, when you're targeting some of these firms, you may think, oh my gosh, I've never had to do a case before. A case is incredibly difficult. It's new for me. I got to spend a lot of time preparing for that. And that may be true. But at a lot of these firms and these companies that I've just mentioned, the behavioral interview is 50% of your final score. And the students that I work with, if they don't spend at least a couple of hours preparing their stories for the behavioral interview, right, that often becomes a stumbling block to getting an offer. And it's a real shame if you do really well on the case, and then you don't end up doing well in the behavioral interview. So I'll show you some resources there as well. We'll, of course, prepare you for the case interview inside of these recruiting processes. And then finally, we'll walk you through how to become a top performer once you've got an offer. So once you've got that coveted job offer, your job's not done. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Your work is just beginning. And a lot of you, what you'll find is that you will spend 70 to 80% of your days post-graduation inside of these roles in Excel and in PowerPoint. And specifically in Excel, you'll be working on building scenario-based models, flexible scenario-based models to be more specific. And then you'll be working to extract insights from those models and translate them into executive level stories in PowerPoint that gain buy-in and motivate action. For those of you who are pursuing an internal strategy role, or you're pursuing a consulting role, honestly, really, if you're pursuing any role, the challenge of any kind of analyst role, whether it's post-MBA or post-undergraduate, is that you have to learn how to influence without formal authority. And so how can you influence senior stakeholders to accept your recommendations? How can you make or incentivize a client to do what it is that you're asking them to do? Really, the answer is storytelling. And so the PowerPoint course inside of this curriculum will teach you how to tell those stories that gain buy-in and motivate action. I spend a lot of my day actually right now with our corporate clients, and this is the number one skill that they tell me that their teams lack, is the ability to tell a story that can gain buy-in and motivate action. And so if you're able to internalize that while you're still in your program, you're going to be way, way ahead of your peers once you kind of rejoin the workforce. So let me show you what some of these resources look like. I'm going to start here with under the application help tab. So this is for you all if you are early on in your process, if you are perhaps still exploring the different roles that are available to you. The MC Starter Pack will help you do that. We'll walk you through some of the strategy and analytics, consulting roles that are available to you, what the recruiting timeline looks like, what the differences are between those job functions and those roles, so that you can decide if these types of jobs and the problem solving that takes place in jobs that require you to do a case interview is something that you want to do. For those of you who aren't familiar with cases, what I do is I give you a business problem to solve in 30 minutes that took one of my teams 3 to 6 months to solve. And it's an ambiguous business problem, right? I come to you and I just let you know, look, I want to enter this new market right within the next 6 months, and I want an answer on what I should do and when I should do it in the next month. You've got 30 days, come back and tell me what you think, right? Like there's a million different directions that you could go. That's a super ambiguous problem, right? And so what firms and companies are evaluating you for is how you structure a problem-solving approach to arrive at an answer to a poorly defined problem like that. And so that's what a case interview is and what it tests you for. And so inside this MC Starter Pack, we just introduce you to the methodology. We introduce you to the different companies that utilize that methodology and help you figure out what type of role would be right for you. I've already mentioned the value of the resume and the cover letter resources here. Specifically, there are 24 templates that are available to you here. I know that the university has a template they like you to stick to, and I've already told you I think it's a good one. But what you'll find inside of our templates is additional inspiration for your bullet points and for your stories inside your cover letter. And so you've got 12 resume templates in here that'll give you additional inspiration, and 12 cover letter templates that will do the same. So utilize those if you just want an example of what really, really good resume and cover letter content looks like. Inside the networking course, which by the way, these are all online video-based courses. Inside the networking course, we walk you through the differences between on-campus and off-campus networking, the difference between warm and cold networking. We walk you through the nuances of who to target when you're networking, how to target them, when the right time is to reach out. We get really, really tactical inside of this course. And so, for example, for those of you that are MBAs on this call today, for a lot of these companies that we're mentioning, the people for you to be networking with are not recruiters. It's not HR. It's actually the post-MBA professionals inside of that organization. This is specifically true for consulting. The post-MBA professionals who make the decision on who gets an interview. So you should be networking with those folks, and we'll walk you through then the right time to be networking with them. We'll give you some tools to do the networking as well. We'll help you write an email script inside of this course. We'll help you write a phone script, so that once you write them a message and they write you back, the request in that message was for a phone call, was for a coffee chat. So we'll help you map out what that phone call and what that coffee chat looks like so that you can convert that interaction to a referral, which is one of the goals of networking. And so we'll walk you through not just the strategy inside this course, but some of the tactics as well. So for those of you who are still early on in your process, I think you'll find that the resources inside of the application help tab to be incredibly useful to you. I'll just quickly show you the behavioral interview resources as well. So I'll click into here. I use the terms behavioral interview and fit interview interchangeably. And so here inside of this course, what we do is we prepare you for some of the common questions that you're going to see. And so one of the questions that I'll always ask you in any behavioral interview is walk me through your resume. And so one of the reasons that you spend a lot of time crafting your resume is not just so you can succeed in applications, but it's because it's going to be a helpful tool for you to succeed in the interview as well. The clearer your story is, the more concise your story is on paper, the easier it is going to be for you to answer this question in the interview. So there are multiple benefits to working on your resume now and making sure it's really the best it can be, the clearest and the most concise it can be, the most metrics-based and outcome-based it can be. And so we'll walk you through how to answer that walk me through your resume question. We'll also walk through the answers to some key questions that you'll see specifically for consulting, but also outside of consulting as well. These same questions are asked. So I might ask you, why do you want to be a consultant? Why consulting? And really what I'm asking you is, why would you be a good fit for consulting? When I ask you, why do you want to work at our company? What I'm really asking you is, why do you think you'd be a good fit in our culture? So we'll give you some insight into the question behind the question that these firms are asking. And then we'll give you some demonstrations of what good answers and good stories sound like to these questions. So an example lesson here, any lesson that has example after it, that's a mock interview with a candidate where we're demonstrating what that question looks like in the wild. And one of the reasons that that's really helpful is that I don't just ask you a question like, why consulting? And then you don't just give me an answer, and then we move on to the next question. I always have follow-up for you. I always have pushback for you. And if you're not ready for like the second and the third questions beyond the first one, you're going to start kind of humming and hawing when we get to the follow-up. So these questions don't exist in a vacuum. It's a dynamic conversation that I want to have with you inside the interview. So you have to be prepared for the follow-ups. And then in an expert video, I put 2 members of my team on the hot seat, and we demonstrate what a really, really A+ answer to that question looks like. So you get to see that question and that answer through multiple lenses through these lessons. And we follow the same structure for some of these other questions that you see here. Really, the way that you want to answer any behavioral question is with a story. A really, really lame way to answer these questions is, I've got 3 reasons why I want to work at Capital One. 1, 2, and 3. Everybody and their brother answers behavioral questions like that. It just looks like you watched a YouTube video and memorized a script. You sound robotic. the only credible way that you can tell me that you understand my firm, you understand the culture of my firm, you understand the work that we do, is by telling me a story. And that's actually one of the reasons that we network as well, because inside of the networking process, I'm going to have conversations that turn into stories I tell in the interview. So I'll say, when I talked to Catherine, inside of the New York office, she told me this, this, and this. And the core values that Deloitte has really resonated with me for these reasons. And that's why I'm really drawn to this role at Deloitte, right? The conversations that you've had with people at my firm give credibility to the answers that you want to share inside of the interview. So networking is critical, not just to land a referral, but again, the conversations that you've had as you network are going to really be the foundation for the stories that you tell inside of the interview as well. And really, I'm going to push you inside of this course to develop 12 to 15 what I call hero stories. These are stories where you are the hero. It's about you and why you're great, and why I should want to work with you and why I should hire you. And so we're going to push you to develop 3 to 4 stories from your educational experience, 3 to 4 stories from your professional experience, and 3 to 4 stories from your leadership experience. And I want you to have this list of 15 stories in your back pocket so that when I ask you some of these questions, like, give me a time you faced an ethical dilemma and what you did about it. Tell me about your greatest strength or your greatest weakness, or tell me about a time you encountered a difficult teammate and how you handled that teammate. When I ask you some of these questions, you've got diverse stories ready to go in your back pocket, and you don't sound like an over-prepared robotic candidate, but every answer to the question that you give me is a story. And you can see here, we walk you through really, really robustly all the questions that you can expect to see and how you should address them inside the interview. So the behavioral interview course will come in handy for you no matter which roles, which functions, industries you're targeting. And that's just navigable here through the Fit Interview Prep tab. I'm going to skip over case interviews for just a second because I want to spend most of our time there. I just want to quickly show you Excel and PowerPoint. I already mentioned why I think this is incredibly important. I just want to show you what is included inside of these courses. So if you're a beginner in Excel and you don't know the shortcuts and you don't know the formulas, they're here for you. For those of you that have some experience with Excel, you can skip that and come straight to the model building. And we'll actually teach you how to build some of the models that you'll build in all industries except for banking. If you're going into banking or finance, there are other tools out there that can show you how to build DCFs and some of the more complex financial models. This is meant for everybody who's not going into banking. So strategy and more kind of analytics to inform business decision making. And so you'll find here how you can build some of the models that you'll have to build on the job. And we even demonstrate for you how we do it. So let's see if I can just pop a screenshot up here. We walk you through what we're doing in Excel and how we're building the models. You can download the initial data set so you can build alongside with us. And you can download my colleague's final version, my final version, so you can compare your worked hours. There's not one right way to do this. So we just want to teach you a way that's going to work best for you. So we'll walk you through how to build those models inside of Excel, and following the same structure and that same ethos, we'll walk you through how to build slides and stories inside of PowerPoint as well. Okay, let's get to the case interview prep. Once you've got your resume straight, once you've started to network, once you've got an understanding of the behavioral interview stories that you have to develop, a big hurdle to pass in a lot of these interview processes is the case interview. And so if you are new to cases and you really don't know what one is or how to do one, this first tile inside of the platform is where I recommend that you go. It's our flagship case course. We'll walk you through what a case is and why it's used. We'll walk you through the 5 pieces of a case, what I'm going to ask you to do inside this interview. Again, you're solving a simulated business problem in 30 minutes. And I'm not giving you a whole lot of insider information to do it. It's your job to come up with a problem-solving approach. It's your job to tell me how you would solve that problem. And so if you haven't practiced not just the problem-solving piece itself, but how you communicate that to an interviewer, this is a very difficult interview to do well in. So one of the reasons that the university has given you this access is so you don't have an excuse when you see cases. You have all the tools here to learn how to do it well. So we'll walk you through each piece of the case and what you're going to be asked to do in each one. We'll walk you through the scoring, how you're evaluated. I've shared actual scoring charts with you as close as possible to what the firms are using. I've just made some tweaks so I don't get sued, right? But they're really, really close and similar to what the firms are employing and how they're going to evaluate you. And then what we do is we show you and walk you through some common problem-solving approaches that you can start to employ to solve cases. Now, the goal inside of a case interview is not to take one of my frameworks and regurgitate it verbatim inside the interview and say, I'm going to use the profitability problem-solving approach to solve this problem. That every interviewer is going to know that you stole that or took that from somewhere. My goal as I teach you these core frameworks is to give you a starting point so you understand what a problem-solving approach looks like, and then you can use this knowledge that you have to start building your own. But it's really good to have some examples and some templates so that you can eventually start to build your own. So the first type of problem that I'd recommend that you start solving if you're preparing for cases is market sizing. So a market sizing problem is something to the effect of size the market for bicycles in Italy. That's all the information I would give you. And you would, like, in 5 seconds, start talking. Take some practice to kind of figure out how to break that problem down and how to communicate it in a way where I can follow your thought process. So we'll walk you through how to do that here inside of the market sizing module. If you've never, ever done a case before, I recommend that you do 10 to 20 market sizing questions before you do anything else. This will give you the core skills that you need to solve more difficult problems later on. After that, we'll teach you the profitability framework, and I'll show you here what a lesson looks like. These are 7 to 10 minute lessons. They're not super long. They're all video based. And I'll show you here.
And the fourth are variable costs.
The camera pans back and forth between the slides and our beautiful faces. So you get to see us, you get to see what the content is. You get to take notes here in the upper right-hand corner. So if there's something you find valuable, you can take notes. You can save that note to your account. It's tagged to the lesson you were on, so you can come back and refer to these later. You can print them. You can export them to Word. There's really no need for you to have pen and paper unless you're just old school like me and like having notepads. But you can take notes digitally here and save them to your account. You don't have 7 minutes to watch the lesson. I've got a written overview for you underneath. I've got an example of what we showed you inside the lesson, and I've got some optional homework for you as well. So if you, again, prefer reading to watching, you've got options underneath the lesson. But once I show you what the framework looks like, then I walk you through the different types of profit questions that you'll see inside of a case interview. And then we'll demonstrate how to apply a variation of the profit framework to a real case. So I'll show you this as well. Let's see if I can find a good spot.
It would be worth digging into, maybe not now, but in a future case, because we're only a week in. What is their actual profitability on compound meds?
So here, the case is you've got a client here called US Convenience. They're a competitor to CVS and to Walgreens, and they are they're trying to identify a competitive advantage against those larger players in the market. And specifically, they're finding that their profitability is lower compared to those larger competitors. So how can they reverse that trend and that decline? So Mike here is a former Bain consultant, and he's just demonstrating how he would walk through this problem, how he would solve it. All the exhibits and the data that the interviewer gives him, you get to see as well. So you can work alongside him, or you can just act as a fly on the wall and see what it's like to do one of these really, really well. And so we want to show you these walkthroughs here as well, so you get a sense, like a visualization and a sense of what a good performance looks like, and you have something to benchmark against. We do the same thing for a market study framework. So market study now is taking profitability, which is an internal look at a company, and adding an external market view to that company as well. It's a more holistic strategy. And so if you're looking to enter a new market or reverse market share decline or introduce a new product to market, right? This would be a framework that you would build on to answer those types of problems. We'll follow the same structure in this module, and then we'll teach you how to break down a mergers and acquisitions problem as well. Should private equity move forward with this acquisition? Yes or no? Should Amazon acquire Whole Foods? Yes or no? All right, really closed-ended questions. And you'll see that there's a difference between financial buyers, private equity, where my goal is to load a company up with debt, grow quickly, and then flip the company in 3 to 7 years. And then corporate buyers, where my goal is to buy and hold for the long term. That would be Amazon buying Whole Foods. So I care much more about synergies and maybe even post-merger integration when I'm dealing with a corporate buyer as opposed to a financial buyer. And so that changes the way that I approach the problem. And so we'll walk you through some of those nuances there inside of these lessons. And then you've got additional examples here underneath. So if you know that you're going to see a case interview, if you're targeting consulting or you're targeting roles in finance or tech or marketing, you'll really want to come through and learn this case solving approach through the case interview bootcamp. And honestly, if you just want to get better at problem solving, if you just want to get better at hearing an ambiguous business problem and understanding how you can break that problem down into its component parts and how you can work through the analysis in a really structured and linear and easy to solve way, it's a great skill to know. And we'll teach you that inside the case interview bootcamp. Even if you don't see any of this in your interviews, it's just an amazing skill to have in your back pocket and will benefit you in your classes, in case competitions that you do, and of course in interviews as well. So once you've been through this case interview course, the next thing for you to do is to start applying this through solving cases on your own. So you can come down here to the case library. We'll give my internet a chance to catch up here. What you'll find in this library are 600 practice cases. I really, really hope you don't do all 600 cases. It's overkill. But you can slice and dice these cases to find cases that are going to fit your need. So, excuse me, if you know that you are interviewing at a certain firm or company, you can find cases that fit the style of that company. So Deloitte or Capital One or Bain or wherever you're targeting, you can find cases that align with the interview style of that firm. If you don't know yet where you're going to be interviewing, you can take my advice and you can start with market sizing, so you can filter by case type. And these are just those frameworks that I already walked you through. They're just different types of business problems. So again, if you've never done this before, start with market sizing. If you know that the firm or the office that you're targeting has a certain industry focus, you can filter by industry. You can also filter by function, right? So I know that I'm pursuing technology roles and I need to find cases that are in the technology space. Great, I can filter by function. Or I know that I'm targeting like a human capital role inside of a consulting firm, or I'm targeting a human capital role inside of a large organization, and they're going to make me do a case. I can find cases that deal with that function. So again, there's a lot of different ways that you can slice and dice these cases to find ones that are going to be applicable for your needs. If you don't know yet the types of cases that you need to do, I'm going to pop guidance into the chat for you. So if you don't know where to start, I'm going to tell you in the chat where to start, and you can just copy that or screenshot that. So the first thing I want you to do, 10 to 20 market sizing questions. The next thing that I want you to do, 4 profitability cases. The next thing I want you to do, 4 market study cases. The next thing I want you to do, 2 M&A cases. So I popped that guidance in the chat. And if you're like, I know I need to prepare for cases, I just don't know where to start, I just gave you your starting plan in the chat. So if you'll do those market sizing cases and then the other cases that I've outlined in the chat, you'll be 20 to 30 cases in. And at that point, you'll have a really good sense of where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. You'll probably have a better sense by then of where you're going to be interviewing, and you'll be able to tailor and tweak your prep from there based on the firms that you're targeting and based on your specific strengths and weaknesses as well. So follow that playbook if you don't know where else to start. I'm going to quickly show you a case here just so you can see what it looks like. This is a case based off of Walmart. This is one of my favorite cases inside of the library. Again, I called it Allmart because I didn't want to get sued. So we're going to call this case Allmart today. And Allmart wants to enter the Romanian market. Specifically, they want to enter Bucharest, which is the capital. And so really what you're being asked to do today is tell Walmart if they should enter the Romanian market and if it's going to be profitable. So it's a yes, no answer. And the criteria, the metric that we're examining to figure out if the answer is yes or no is profitability. So what are some good questions that you might ask to learn more important information? If you had been through the case course, you would know that your first job inside of a case is to recap the prompt to me. And your second job inside the case is to ask me clarifying questions so that you just make sure that you understand what the problem is and you understand all the information that I've shared with you. So at this point, you've got guidance here inside the case. So if you all are working with each other, right? If I'm working with Lauren and we're casing each other and I'm not a case expert and Lauren's my practice partner, I don't have to be an expert to give her really good feedback because she should know that she has to recap for me. She should know that she has to ask me clarifying questions, and I can score her on how strong her recap is and how strong her questions are using this guidance inside the case. So you all can practice with each other even if you're not experts yet, right? This guidance will help you give standardized feedback. And if you're practicing on your own, you can self-evaluate. I can give myself feedback on my recap and my clarifying questions. The next thing that Lauren would have to do, Lauren, I'm just going to pick on you, sorry, right? But the next thing that Lauren would have to do here is she would build her initial problem-solving approach, right? Also known as the structure, also known as your framework. So she would take 2 minutes to build her problem-solving approach. I would be reviewing the guidance as she's doing that. And then we would have examples here to see, how close she was to what a good answer looks like. So you've got a kind of a basic problem-solving approach here on the slide. You've got a more evolved problem-solving approach here on the next slide. Hey, to answer this question for Allmart, here's the analysis that I would want to conduct. I'd want to conduct company analysis. I'd want to conduct customer analysis. I'd want to conduct competitive analysis. And then I'd want to look at some other considerations as well, which when you look underneath, it's really market analysis, right? So those are the 4 lines of analysis that I'd want to run. Here's the specific questions that I would want to answer inside of each category. And here's where I'd want to start my analysis. And I'd say, well done, Lauren. Let's start with the market analysis. And specifically, I want you to compute the total market size for Bucharest. So I'd give you all this data. Your job would be to compute the market size. And if you do the math right, turns out it's about a $5 billion a year market. Now, a lot of students, when they work with me and they're doing math inside of a case, which, by the way, I'm almost always going to ask you to do math inside of a case. I'm going to test your quantitative problem-solving ability. People get the math right, and then they get really happy that they got the math right. And I'm like, that's great. You should be happy, but you're not done yet. What I'm really asking you for when I ask you to do the math is to tell me what the number means. Because on the job, you're going to have a calculator. On the job, you're going to have Excel. I'm not going to ask you to do this kind of math on the job, like out loud on paper. I'm only doing that in the interview. What I really want to know is, can you contextualize the number for me? So can you tell me what the implications of this number are for our client? So the level 1 answer is getting the math right. That's table stakes. The level 2 answer is tell me what it means for our client. And the level 3 answer is tell me what you want to look at next. So give me some insights associated with the number. So you'd give me those insights, right? And the insights really are, look, this is a helpful start, but you told me that our criteria for making a decision was profitability. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to identify how much of this $5 billion market can we actually capture. And then we need to translate the revenue that we can capture to profit. And I'd say, great, well done. So how do you determine market share? How would you calculate that? You would do the math, you'd make some assumptions, and it turns out you think that we can capture $240 million of that $5 billion market. Tell me what you think it means. And the ultimate answer is, first, I don't know if my assumptions are reasonable. Second, we still don't have profit. So even if this is our like revenue opportunity, until we look at the cost side of the equation, I don't know if this is going to be profitable or not. And so I'd say, wonderful, well done. I'm not going to ask you to do any more math for now. I just want you to brainstorm. What are some costs that Allmart would have if they were to open a new store in Romania? I'm just going to put you on the spot. I'm going to test your ability to come up with ideas quickly. So what are some cost categories they'd face? And you can see here some cost categories they'd face. A lot of beginner candidates, what they do when I put them on the spot and ask them for ideas is they just start spewing ideas at me. And that's very difficult for me as an interviewer to follow because I'm playing the role of the client here. And I'm thinking if you're going to communicate with a client or with a senior stakeholder like this, they're not going to be able to follow anything that you're saying. It's just, there's no executive presence in the level one answer. All right. The way I want you to answer it is great question. There are two categories of costs that I think Allmart would face: fixed cost and variable cost. Under fixed cost, I've got 4 cost categories: 1, 2, 3, 4. Under variable cost, I've got 3 categories: 1, 2, 3. And then you can walk me through what those answers are. But you can see that I'm staying verbally structured as I communicate. And that is what you're going to want to do in the interview. It's how you're going to want to speak with senior stakeholders. It's just going to really, really enhance the gravitas of your presentation if you communicate like that. So I'd say, great, well done. Out of those cost categories, which ones would have cost savings versus the US, which is where we currently operate? So I'm going to give you like a basic exhibit here. I'm going to give you some additional information. And then you're going to do the math. And you're going to tell me, look, it's going to cost about 1/3 less for us to run a store in Romania as opposed to the US. And that passes the sniff test, right? It should be cheaper in Eastern Europe. Again, tell me what it means. And then eventually what I would do is I'd ask you for a final recommendation. And inside of a case interview, the only unacceptable answers are, I need more data or I need more time. You have no more data, you have no more time, I need an answer. I need to know how you're going to tie everything up. And so you got to give me a recommendation, whether we should enter the market or not. You got to give me data to support the recommendation, then you got to tell me next steps. And so here, the sample is, hey, I recommend we should enter the Romanian market. Why? We've got a sizable revenue opportunity, $240 million, and a lower cost structure than we're used to. Sizable revenues, lower cost structure equals profitability. That's the metric that you told me that you cared about. Now, am I going to tell Allmart to invest $100 million to go to Romania tomorrow? No. There's some things that we'd still want to look at. I'd want to review our total profitability. I'd want to create a go-to-market plan. I don't want to review the regulatory landscape. I don't want to look at supply chains. I don't want to look at distribution. There's a lot of things that I'd want to do. But based on what we looked at today and what we had time to look at, I think the answer is yes. Right. And that's how you would tie up a case by giving me a strong final recommendation. So I know I took some time to walk through the case, but I wanted to give you a sense for what the pieces were and how they fit together and what some of the expectations are going to be as you're working through them. Let me just take the last couple of minutes that we have here and highlight a couple other things that are available to you, and then I'll take some questions. So once you've done those 20 to 30 cases that I outlined in the chat, you'll have a really good sense of what you're good at and what you're not. And so some of you may find that, you know what, that initial problem solving approach I have to come up with, that's really difficult for me, right? And we call that a structure. So coming up with a structure is really difficult for me. I'm not good at coming up with those categories and those lines of analysis that I want to do, like a work plan to solve the problem. So you can come to the structure drills, and we are just going to practice that part of the case. So I give you a prompt, and it's your job just to come up with a problem-solving approach. You know what? To solve this problem, I'd want to do a market analysis. I'd want to do a competitor analysis. I'd want to analyze our fixed costs. And then here specifically is what I want to look at underneath each category. So you can just practice, and then you can get a sense of what our answer would look like and just compare your worked hours. So if you're looking for practice, you can You can come to the structure drills. We've got video-based drills here as well, a little bit more interactive. Brainstorming drills, that question that I showed you around coming up with ideas for cost categories. If you're like, oh my gosh, it's really difficult for me to just come up with ideas on the spot. Brainstorming is a skill that can be learned and can be strengthened. So you can come and do these drills and get better at coming up with ideas quickly. If math you think would be an issue for you, if you're like, oh my gosh, that seemed like some gnarly math. I don't know if I want to do that in front of another human being without a calculator, right? Like you can come to the math drills and just kind of relearn how to do some of the math that you'll have to do inside the interview. Right, so 40 times 20K, what would that be? Right, I'm just going to do 40 times 20, and then I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Is that the right answer? Yep, it's 800,000. Right, so you can just come and kind of like relearn how to do some of this math and just put some of those tips and tricks and strategies into action. That one's a little bit tougher, but again, right, you could do 40 times 96 and 40 times 7 and add them together and then add the zeros back at the end. Like you can learn how to break these problems down and do them on the fly. Here's an easier one. Here I'd probably do 820 times 200, 820 times 30, and then subtract the sums and then get to the final answer. And you all get the idea, but I'm just practicing here my mental math because inside of a case, I don't get to use a calculator. So here the system's telling me, hey, Naman, you only got one right. No bueno, right? So you can go to the math course and relearn how to do some of this math if you need to. So if I need to relearn how to do some of this math, I can just come here. If I want to learn how to do multiplication or division or percentages or interest or squaring, calculate ROI, I can just come here.
Let me just go back and make sure that
and we'll teach you how to do the math again. Honestly, you all probably learned how to do this in high school. It's just been a while since you've done it, right? So we'll reteach you if that's what you need to know. Let me just head back here, if it'll let me. Let's go to new category. By the way, if you ever need to navigate back to the homepage, just click My Account in the upper right-hand corner. That'll take you back to the main dashboard. You've got exhibit drills here. I know we're almost at time. So that chart that I showed you, if you look at charts and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to interpret this data, come to the exhibit drills and you can practice. So you've got some context here. You've got a data visualization here. And your job is to tell me, what is this saying? What should our client do? Or what does it mean to the client? And what would I want to look at next? Those 3 levels of insight. And then you can compare your worked hours. But here you can just strengthen your ability to interpret charts and graphs and information and extract insights from them, which not just a helpful interview skill, but a helpful life and business skill. If you have been you stuck with me today, thank you, by the way. If you stuck with me today and you're like, look, some of these terms I don't understand, or I've forgotten what they mean, you can come to the Business Basics course and we'll just reteach you some of that terminology and some of these business concepts. So if you aren't sure how to calculate profit or market size or market share, don't know how to read financial statements, don't know the difference between variable cost and fixed cost, don't know the difference between assets and liabilities, we'll just teach you inside of this course. And so for those of you who come from non-traditional backgrounds, I think you'll find this material really helpful for you just to help you in your classes as well. But I don't think all of you will need this, but some of you might, and you can come and take advantage of that in the Business Basics course. By the way, I'm teaching in MBA classrooms all the time where people don't always understand the difference between fixed cost and variable cost, right? So if you're like unsure about the difference, come there and just figure it out, because fixed cost does not mean that your costs never rise. So go to the course, figure out what it actually is, if that's something that you need to do. And with that being said, I'll wrap up for today, the formal part of our presentation. And I'll just say that this tool is here for you to walk you through every facet of the recruiting process, right? Remember, we covered networking and resumes. we covered behavioral interviews, we covered case interviews in depth, and we covered Excel and PowerPoint training as well. So no matter where you're at in the recruiting lifecycle, there's a resource here that will help you take the next step. And so I'll pause here. Catherine, Lauren, I'll turn things back over to you. And if folks have questions, I'm more than happy to stick around for the next 10 minutes and answer them.
Thank you, Neiman. That was really informative. And students, if you have questions, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Oh, Michael has a question. Michael Eng. Oh, I'll ask it. Is there a discount code or can I access it for free? So Hofstra University, the Zarb School of Business has purchased this for you, and you can access it through the Hofstra University Career Hub. So hofstra.edu/career hub. You can access it for free.
One thing that I'll just quickly mention is make sure you go through the Hofstra link to register. That way our system knows that you are a student at the School of Business and you'll get access. Because if you just come to the website directly and create an account, we won't know that you're under the license of the university. So go through the link that Lauren just mentioned.
Okay, how can I access it? Okay, I'm just going to go to hofstra.edu/career hub. I just put the link in the chat. You will see Management Consulted there as one of our online resources. You're welcome. Any other questions?
As we're waiting for questions, I'll just quickly say, when you register, you will get an email sent to you with some suggested prep plans. So some of you on this call might be thinking, oh my gosh, I've got an interview in like 4 weeks, right? Or I need to prepare for a case quickly. What do I do? There are 4-week and 6-week prep plans that will be included in your welcome email. So for those of you that find yourself on a tight timeline, maybe it's people who are watching this recording later, but if you're on a tight timeline, utilize the prep plans that are included in your welcome email, and those will get you ready quickly. And even if you all don't have questions about the resource, but you just have questions about consulting or case interviews and more generally, I'm happy to answer those as well. So the questions don't have to be resource specific. I'm just here to help how I can for the next few minutes if you all want it.
Anybody else have a question for Neiman?
Wonderful. Well, if not, I'll just and Lauren, I put our team's email in the chat as well. So if people have questions after today, and if you want to get in touch with us, just write to team@managementconsulted.com, and we answer hundreds of questions a week. So we'll get back to you with an answer, and we're more than happy to help you even after this session today. So please write to us.
Okay, well, I guess that wraps it up. Thank you so much, Neiman, and thank